Hi students, welcome back. Are you as excited as I am to finish our story of Cinderella? Remember, this is the book we're reading out of, okay? If you want to run and grab it, you can pause the recording so that you can follow along and look at the pictures with me, okay? We're going to start on page 144, about halfway down the page. But before we do that, let's see if we can remember. How did Cinderella get her name? Do you remember? Yeah, they used to call her Cinder Wench because she would go sit in the cinders after she was done with all of her work. But one of the nicer sisters called her Cinderella, right? And how did her stepsisters treat her? Were they nice to her? They weren't, were they? They were mean and unkind to her, and she had to clean up after them, didn't she? Yeah. How did she get to the ball? Do you remember? She was just about to head there when we stopped reading last time. Did she go in her rags? I don't think she did. Who helped her to change her clothes into fancy clothes and helped her turn a pumpkin into the coach? That's right, the fairy godmother. All right, let's start reading on page 144. And I think when we left off yesterday, I showed you this picture, and I said it was a picture of Cinderella and her fairy godmother, but it's really somebody else. Who do you think that she might be with? That's a pretty fancy hat she's wearing, just like my fancy tiara, huh? Well, let's find out. The king's son had been told that a great princess, unknown to all the company, would soon arrive, and he ran out to receive her himself. He gave her his hand as she sprang from the coach and led her into the hall where everyone was assembled. At once there was silence. So awed were the guests by the mysterious princess that they left off dancing and the musicians ceased to play. Then a hushed murmur swept the room. "Oh, how lovely she is! How lovely!" The king himself, old as he was, could not keep his eyes off of her, and he whispered to the queen that he had never before seen a more enchanting creature. All the women looked closely at her gown and her hair ornaments so that they might have theirs made to the same pattern. If only they could find such fine silk and jewels and such skillful hands to work them. The king's son led her across the floor, and they danced together again and again. A fine banquet was served, but the young prince only gazed at her and could not eat a bite. After a time she left his side and went to sit by her sisters. She treated them with kindness and offered them sections of the oranges that the prince had given her. It very much pleased them to be singled out in this way. Then Cinderella heard a clock strike 12:15. What does that mean? It's getting close to time for her to go, isn't it? Quickly she wished the company good night and ran from the hall and down the palace steps to her coach. When she was home again, she found her godmother and thanked her and asked if she might go to a ball again the next day. As she was telling her godmother all that happened, her two sisters came into the room. "How long you have stayed," she greeted them, rubbing her eyes as if she would have been asleep. "You would have stayed as well," said her sisters. "There was an unknown princess, the most beautiful ever seen in this world. She sat with us and gave us oranges." "Was she really so very beautiful? And do you not know her name?" Then Cinderella turned to the eldest one. "Ah, dear sister, won't you give me your yellow dress that you wear every day, so that I might see the princess for myself?" "Lend my clothing to a dirty cinder wench? I should be out of my mind," cried the sister. Cinderella had expected such an answer, and she was very glad of the refusal. The next evening the two sisters went to the ball, and she went too, dressed even more exquisitely than the first time. The king's son was always with her and spoke to her with words of praise. So entranced was Cinderella that she forgot her godmother's warning and heard the chimes of midnight when she thought it could be no more than 11 o'clock. At once she arose and fled, nimble as a deer. Though the prince rushed after her, he could not catch her. In her haste, she left behind one of the glass slippers, which he picked up and carried with him. Cinderella's coach had vanished, and she had to run home in the dark. Of her finery nothing remained but the other glass slipper. The guards at the palace gates were asked. Uh-oh, I better show you this picture before we turn the page. Look at her beautiful gown. Isn't that beautiful? Oh. Did you hear that?